My name is Jonathan Crawley, and I'm the President and CEO of Strategics Management. And I want to just give everyone a warm welcome to our first Access to Success Listening Lab event hosted by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services within the Office of OSDBU. As a prime contractor for the Access to Success events, it's been a huge pleasure just to be able to see this brand evolve. And of course, during this COVID-19 environment, this is just such a powerful topic for us at this time. And it's a true testament to the agency's ability to pivot and really address some of the most critical issues taking place. From the beginning, when we looked at rebranding the Access to Success brand, this agency is really focused on transforming how they interact with small businesses. And we're so excited to really be able to bring this event to you all from your home locations, as we know a lot of people are still remote at this time. One of the powerful things about the Access to Success brand, the event series, and even the conferences that you'll experience soon is the ability to create this real access to small businesses. As a small business, one of the most powerful things and testimonials that I can provide is that 5 years ago, we were a very new business in the federal space. And our very first conference was the Department of Health and Human Services, at that time, Back to Business Conference, which is now Access to Success. But from that very conference, we were able to create some of the most dynamic business relationships, relationships with government agencies that have really truly positioned our company to be in an incredible space now as an 8A firm and a hub zone business, and now as the prime contractor for this Access to Success event. So it's truly been a transformational journey, and it is our hope that these events really bring that same level of transformation to your businesses. This session will be co-moderated by two speakers. The first will be Linda Waters, and the second will be Barbara Bigelow. Linda has more than 30 years of experience within the federal government as the Deputy Director for Administration and Programs, and also as the National Outreach Director within the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization out of HHS. Ms. Waters is responsible for executing strategy, sustaining high internal and external partners, strengthening relationships with the OSDBU and the small business community, and also supporting all of the resource partners and stakeholders who truly contribute to the small business success. Ms. Waters also manages the development and implementation of appropriate outreach programs aimed at heightening the awareness of the small business community by finding contracting opportunities available at the department and throughout the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Linda Waters. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. Anyway, good afternoon, virtual audience. I'm excited, and I hope all you out there are excited. I am Linda Waters. We are excited that you're able to join us this afternoon. We're introducing for the first time our virtual listening lab in a continued effort to support small business initiatives. The COVID-19 global pandemic has been very challenging, and although we hosted on-site conferences that were canceled, the listening labs are our effort to continue to support small business initiatives. Now I'd like to introduce our co-moderator, Ms. Barbara Bigelow. Barbara Bigelow has over 29 years of experience across the federal government spectrum with the United States Department of Transportation, National Transportation Safety Board, and the Small Business Administration. Ms. Bigelow is currently responsible for oversight of multiple contracts and special projects. In addition to the contracting officer representative for the Access to Success Small Business Conference, she is a strong advocate for small businesses. Ms. Bigelow supports the development of small businesses in government procurement. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Bigelow.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Linda, for such a warm introduction. I am Barbara Bigelow, and again, I'd like to welcome each of you to this exciting event today. So what is Access to Success? A2S, as we also call it. A2S is the newly launched outreach initiative for fiscal year 2020. It comes off the heels of what some of you may be familiar with, getting back to business, B2B. HHS OSTBU are always looking for better ways that we can assist the small business community. And A2S does just that by allowing small businesses to effectively market their products and services to the federal government, which affords them real access to real business opportunities. Especially in this season with such challenges as COVID-19. We want you to know, as an advocate of small businesses, we are keeping you to the forefront, temporarily canceling our on-site event and keeping safety in mind for all of our small businesses. Noting that our on-site events will resume as soon as it's safe to do so. We are continuing our commitment to our small business initiatives with creating new and innovative outreach forums as the Listening Lab. This is a direct response of your feedback, the small businesses. Additionally, the Listening Lab will assist small businesses in finding financial resources and business opportunities despite the results of this unexpected and tragic pandemic. So let's get started. It is an honor to introduce the Acting Director of the Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, OSTBU, of the Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Michelle Street. Dr. Street joined the department in April of 2016. Prior to joining OSTBU, Dr. Street was the lead procurement analyst at the National Institutes of Health, NIH, Information Technology and Acquisition and Assessment Center. Dr. Street is currently responsible for compliance with Small Business Administration, SBA, reporting requirements, ensuring the proper and execution of small business programs, and overall program and project management. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dr. Street.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for having me join this event today. So I just wanted to start. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start off by thanking Mr. David Dasher, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Acquisitions. He's also the Senior Procurement Executive, and he continuously supports the HHS Small Business Program. He was looking forward to addressing the participants today, but since his regrets as he had an unexpected problem he had to handle today. So I'm going to jump right in. So for those of you who don't know, and my understanding is the audience is largely small businesses, but in order to do business with HHS, you need to understand how we're organized. So HHS is organized around 10 regional offices that directly serve state and local organizations. And each region is led by a president-appointed regional director. Within these 10 regions, we have about 85,000 employees. In terms of our contracting that supports the mission execution of these 85,000 employees across these 10 regions, we have 11 heads of contracting, 2 of which have joined us today. And the last count I had, we have about 50 contracting offices. That speaks to how decentralized the buying is at HHS. So it's very important for small businesses looking to do business with HHS, understand where they want to target their opportunities. As an OSTBU, we have 7 small business specialists that support this effort. And we are a small but mighty crew of small business specialists and industry advocates. However, when you want to do business with HHS and contact the OSTBU, we have a lot of best practices that we'd like to share with you, and we will do so in other venues. So HHS obligates about $1 trillion, or at least that's about what it was last year, every year. And a lot of people are surprised by that number. So about $1.5 trillion of that is in grants and subsidies, I give you that. But we still do over $25 billion a year in contracts. This is, I think, the third highest at this point out of the big seven agencies in the federal government. I think we're third behind Department of Defense and Department of Energy. And of that 25 billion, we have about 5 to 6 that go to small business. So you see, as a small business, you're looking at competing for, on average, about 4.5% to 5% of HHS's total obligation, which shows why you need to target even further. When it comes to the federal response to COVID-19, HHS is all hands on deck right now. So in addition to working with our federal partners, we are working together with state, local, and tribal governments, public health officials, healthcare providers, researchers, and the private sector to execute the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, at the CDC, in addition to education and outreach to help communities plan and respond to the health crisis, they continue to work with healthcare professionals and health departments with key resources such as contact tracing and collecting data and providing tools to standardize an approach to reported COVID cases. The NIH continues its tradition of groundbreaking research in the COVID era. In addition to initiatives to improve testing, the NIH is working collaboratively with the scientific community and sharing their data efforts in hopes of accelerating COVID-19 therapeutic interventions and vaccines. And among many other activities, the FDA has been working to facilitate the development and availability of medical products and equipment for patients, physicians, and healthcare systems through the use of emergency use authorizations. So these medical products can be made available as quickly and safely as possible. And today, you're going to hear from the heads of contracting at ASPR. ASPR is the office responsible for the Strategic National Stockpile Program, which includes PPE, and the Indian Health Services, who work closely with their tribal partners. These three examples are a small sampling of the steps HHS is taking to help not only our country, but the world respond to this national health crisis. With that said, I'll close with a reminder to the small businesses on the line today that the HHS OSDBU is a great resource for small businesses wanting to do business with HHS. I encourage all small businesses listening to me today to go to our website at osdbu.hhs.gov to create a profile and upload your capability statement that will become searchable for HHS program and contracting officials. For more information or assistance, please do not hesitate to contact the OSDBU Customer Care Center at sbmail@hhs.gov. And finally, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. I know you folks are very busy these days, so we really appreciate you sharing your valuable time with us. I'd like to thank the OSDBU Outreach Team under the leadership of Linda Waters for putting together this event. As of this morning, I believe Barbara told me there were over 2,000 people registered. So that's amazing. I think that's a tremendous accomplishment. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the participants for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for taking that time to share with us today. It is evident how impactful our small businesses are in this intricate part of our economy. As we continue, our next speaker is Skyler Eldridge. Mr. Eldridge has been actively involved for over 28 years in federal acquisitions. Mr. Eldridge is highly skilled in negotiations, government acquisitions, and assistance, emergency management, finance, human capital, and leadership within the cabinet level agency. Mr. Eldridge have achieved extensive experience working across various government divisions to achieve departmental strategic goals. Ladies and gentlemen, Skyler Eldridge.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Yeah, I'm Skyler T. Eldridge, and I'm the head of the contracting activity for the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. Just a little bit of background. The ASPR's mission is to save lives and protect Americans from 21st century health security threats. And to say the least, COVID-19 is a health security threat. Within my activity, I have two big acquisition grant divisions. I have the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, better known as BARDA, which is a $70 billion contract portfolio. I also have the Office of Resource Management with IHS Headquarters contracting, which is responsible for the response. Those contracts you might be familiar with when at the beginning of the COVID response, we had the ships dock and they had Americans, and we got all the Americans off of the ships and got them into bases across the country. That was our contracts. Those were the shops that run that. And I also had the Strategic National Stockpile that Dr. Street spoke about, a $7 billion program, which is responsible for stockpiling medical countermeasures for deployment, and more specifically, as of late, PPE, personal protective equipment, which includes the big 5 N95 masks, surgical masks, gloves, gowns, face shields. They're also responsible for the procurement of the ventilators. We've bought over 200,000 ventilators. And backtracking just a little bit about BARDA, they currently are working on Operation Warp Speed. They're at the front line on Operation Warp Speed, which is the advanced development of the vaccines and therapeutics. So we've been busy with COVID-19. We're busy normally, but we're at the forefront of the response. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is some opportunities and present some possibilities for you to engage with the ASPR and how you're going to do business with the ASPR during this pandemic. Next slide. So this slide here just kind of outlines the top 10 prime contractors as of last week. And these are very large procurements. If you look, they're hundreds of millions of dollars. And the first 1, 2, 3, 4 are both Philips is our ventilator contractor. Emergent is one of our manufacturing on the BARDA. Janssen, which is Johnson & Johnson, is developing a COVID vaccine. The reason why this is an important slide for you to understand is there are subcontract opportunities here for you. These large companies have a requirement under the Federal Acquisition Regulation to subcontract a portion of that work. So there's an opportunity there for you to reach out if you have relationships with their purchasing and or their contracting shops. And if you don't, then you should certainly attempt to get in contact with them. Next slide. This slide also lists the top 10 contractors that we've provided prime contracts to date. The list is a little bit different than the previous list. It added Zoll Medical as well as AstraZeneca, as well as General Motors. Next slide. And this is what's important to you. These are the NAICS codes for these industries that we've provided all these awards to. And as you can see, medical, dental, and hospital equipment, surgical and medical instruments, pharmaceuticals. To tell you what the driver is with regard to how we select, principal to this response, delivery. If you can deliver, if you meet our technical requirements and you can meet our delivery schedule, then we seek all sources. We're not picky in that regard. As long as you meet our technical requirements and you're able to deliver, then the ASPR will engage and will award contracts. So I don't want you to think that we're just looking at large businesses. We also do a lot of work to small businesses. Next slide, please. As prime contractors, that is. And these are additional NAICS codes and the top 10 codes so far that we've awarded contracts to. Next slide. Now, here's a way for you to engage in the ASPR. These are places that you can see our advertisements and where we go to seek our sources. The BARDA Broad Agency announcement, and there's a website there. We also have the Drive Broad Agency announcement. And then we have the ASPR Next Broad Agency announcement. If you go to those websites, you will see what those requirements are. Remember, the government is always about requirements. We also use the government point of entry previously, which was FedBizOps, Beta SAM. And a word of advice, I know you get this advice all the time. You need to be registered in Beta SAM. And we also accept unsolicited proposals. And if you intend on providing an unsolicited proposal or submitting an unsolicited proposal, please reference FAR 15.6. It gives you all of the directions and on how to put that proposal together. Next slide, please. We also have other opportunities for you to get information from us. We have BARDA Industry Day. It's an annual 2-day event. Given that COVID is around, it's typically in the fall and it's typically in the October, November timeframe. I know that we have put together a BARDA Industry Day this year. I'm not sure if we're going to have to go to a format like this, but there's a website there for you to get updates. We also have BARDA Tech Watch meetings, which you can register and you can present your capabilities to BARDA. They have very specific guidelines as well, and there's a web page for that. Next page. Next slide, please. There's also the Small Business Mentor Protege Program. I'm sure that you are aware, and if you're not, then you can certainly go to the SBA website listed here and get some additional information. These are all opportunities for you to engage not only with the ASPR, but engage across the federal government. Next slide, please. Or is that my last slide?
That's your last slide.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Street, as well as the OSDE Boo office, Barbara and Linda. Greatly appreciate this opportunity, and I hope that I've been helpful to everyone. And please remember, stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, and good luck out there.
Thank you, Skyler. That was great. I think this information is definitely going to be helpful to our virtual audience. And I know there was a couple of questions, and I just want to I'm going to probably restate this throughout the presentations. This is a recorded session, and you'll be able to find the recording link of the website, including the PowerPoint presentations will be on the website. And we will provide that information again to you at the end of the presentation. So be patient. So with that being said, let's continue. I would now like to introduce Santiago Alvarez. Mr. Alvarez is an enrolled member of the San Carlos Apache tribe. He is the acting director of the Office of Management Services for the Indian Health Services, providing leadership and advisory services to the IHS director. Concentrated areas are grants, acquisition, management policy, regulatory affairs, asset management, and administrative/emergency services. The IHS, an agency within the Department of Health and Human Services, is the principal federal healthcare advocate and provider of healthcare services of American Indian and Alaska Native. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Santiago Alvarez.
Thank you, Linda. First off, I want to thank the HHS Office of Small Business Disadvantaged Business Utilization for inviting me today to allow to speak to you all today. Just wanted to also, that previous slide, I wanted to also identify that there is a acting director, Ken Truesdale, who is the actual Office of Execution. He oversees all of the acquisitions throughout IHS. Of course, I am the HCA, but I'm also acting in another capacity. But Mr. Truesdale, you can contact myself or Mr. Truesdale for any questions today in regards to the information provided and also into any future contract opportunities. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, I wanted to quickly share the IHS mission today for those on the call that may not fully be aware, to raise the physical, mental, social, and spiritual health of American Indians and Alaska Natives to the highest level. This mission is very unique, and it speaks close to my heart because I have many family and friends that utilize and rely on these health services provided. Next slide. In support of the mission, IHS has identified the below priorities to maintain continued and further commitment to tribal and urban Indian health program partnerships. This is to improve the quality of access to care. In my tenure as the IHS head of contract activity, I've promoted IHS contract activities to be transparent, fair, and accountable. Additionally, to ensure inclusiveness of all small business contract opportunities to account for Indian small business economic enterprises, which I'll talk to more in next slides. Next slide. As Michelle Street identified earlier, many HHS agencies are somewhat decentralized. IHS, of course, is one of them, with the majority of its workforce operating out of 12 area offices located throughout the US. In addition to the 12 area offices, there are about 170 IHS and tribally managed service units and clinics. I operate out of the IHS Headquarters office located in Rockville, Maryland, which is the Division of Action Policy. And I'll provide more additional information on my office in the next couple of slides. Next slide. So this slide gives you a view of the 12 area offices located across the US. Each office identified has a contracting office which awards and administers commercial contract opportunities from that particular area. Next slide. So provided here is the Division of Acquisition Policy mission maximizing strategies to maintain and improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the overall IHS action processes, and also to promote collaboration with contractors by maintaining transparency where allowable, of course. Next slide. So here's a better picture of how IHS acquisitions is structured throughout. As mentioned, I work out of the headquarters office in Rockville with a staff of about 6 contract specialists that handle IHS policy oversight and contract execution actions for local headquarters and agency-wide procurements. And of course, there are 12 area offices. Each has an assigned chief of contracting officer that provides area contracting oversight to include service units and clinics within that area. Another piece of the contracting structure within IHS is also the division of engineering services. And these two offices are located out of Dallas and Seattle. These two contracting offices support all IHS construction contract activities to include architecture and engineering services for contract opportunities above $150,000. Next slide. And so doing business with the IHS, of course, we do have what some of you may know us as the Buy Indian Act. IHS, via the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Transfer Act, allows for IHS to set aside contract opportunities to Indian small business economic enterprises. And in doing so, we also provide, and working with the OSDBU, we also provide for opportunities to small business as well. Next slide. Here's a list of goods and services IHS procures on a normal basis. And with the recent COVID-19 pandemic, specific categories, of course, in the medical field have increased. And we have seen an uptake, of course, PPE and contact tracing type services. Next slide. So with the Buy Indian Act, HHS currently has acquisition regulations in place that support the Buy Indian Act, which provides for IHS to set aside procurement opportunities. IHS is currently in working coordination with HHS to finalize a formal rulemaking process and update the HHS acquisition regulations to support how IHS will comply, report, and train under the Buy Indian Act. Once this rule is finalized, IHS will begin in finalizing its IHS manual directive, which will identify and support IHS process and procedures internal to IHS. Listed here are the eligibility requirements for native-owned businesses to participate in IHS set-aside contract opportunities. Next slide. For a specific contract opportunity, after reviewing and determining use of the FAR required sources, such as agency inventory, Federal Prison Industries V.1 or wholesale federal supply schedules, IHS will then seek for possible Indian small business economic enterprises. Of course, we have that 2 or more rule as well, that if there are 2 or more possible ISBs, then of course that gives us a determination to move forward with setting aside under the Buy Indian Act. IHS also utilizes the GSA Federal Supply and GWACs, in addition to also obtaining goods and services via assisted acquisitions through the other federal agencies. This is a slide here that identifies, I'm sorry, you can go back to one first. Yes, thank you. This slide is just an overview of the 19 of our overall goals, our final goals for 19. As you can see, for the first time in IHS history, we obligated over $1 billion in commercial contracts. Of course, we were close to our goal, but didn't quite meet it. But still, that is a good goal for us. In terms of Buy Indian obligations, we were about 36 million for FY19 that we set aside for Indian-owned businesses. Next slide. And as of June 15th, we are pretty close. We're on target for meeting our goals this year as well. We're about halfway to $1 billion with $232 million already awarded to small businesses. And so far, as of this date, right now we have about almost $13 million that have been awarded and set aside for Buy Indian contractors. Next slide. So here is a quick short list of future forecasted procurements with IHS that I wanted to share with you all. And as I mentioned before in the beginning of the presentation, you may contact myself or Mr. Ken Truesdale for any of these contract opportunities or any future opportunities that you may see via the Beta.SAM, which is formerly FedBizOps site. And so I want to thank you all for inviting me today to speak. Stay safe. Have a great rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Santiago. I hope you all have been grasping all that is coming across from these great speakers, and especially with Santiago focusing on the Buy Indian Act. Such great information shared. I'm hoping you're jotting things down as we're proceeding through the agenda today. This brings us to another exciting moment, and that is to introduce our next speaker, which I know personally. We have worked together over the years during my tenure at SBA. In addition, he has always provided his support to HHS outreach events. I am proud to introduce Antonio Das. Mr. Das was appointed District Director of Washington Metropolitan Area District Office of the United States Small Business Administration in December of 2013. Mr. Das and his team provides technical assistance to the Small Business Administration's largest portfolio of firms participating in business development programs. Among the Washington Metropolitan Area District Office accomplishments is the issuance of more than 6 billion in contract offer letters annually. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Antonio Das.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. It's great to be able to participate again this year. And it's a new setup this year, right? We're doing these virtually. And so I'm glad that so many of you are able to join in and participate. So I'll share some information with you. I'm really going to focus on a couple different major pieces. One is about change, because we're really talking about coping with COVID-19 and how do you really manage and deal with these things. I know there's some interest in financing and getting resources for contract opportunities, and that's of course really, really important. And then thirdly, I want to touch base on some of the resources. So looking at this, this title here, Coping with COVID-19, one of the things that really kind of jumped out at me was a statement that I think a lot of the Marines often use. And is there by chance any Marines online? Most likely there are. But the whole idea of improvise, adapt, and overcome, sort of a mantra that exists within the Marine Corps. And it's one of those things that I think is pertinent also to any business, particularly a small business right now in this environment. So we're in this whole change environment where things are very different now in so many ways than what they were before. And you hear people talk about the new normal and how are we going to adjust to this new normal? And there's some apprehension to it because a lot of it is uncertain. There's uncertainty around the duration of this new environment that we're going to be in and what the lasting changes are going to be. The people who really will be successful will be the ones who think about this in a proactive way, and they find a way to make this new normal a better normal than it was before. And that's part of what the typical ingenuity is of small business owners, is to find a way or make a way to whichever solution point that you need to drive your businesses as the leader of the business. And so, one of the things we talk about is that, physically, the place of where we do our work. I've talked to a number of small businesses in our region, in the Washington metropolitan area. And, one of the things that jumped out at me was a little bit interesting was the fact that they can't go necessarily to the buying activities place of business. They can't get into a lot of the federal agency locations because many of those persons are on telework. But what they found out is that they've been able to extend their day in terms of efficiency to a pretty great extent. I've talked to business owners who said, I'm doing 6, 7, 8 meetings a day because guess what? I'm not spending time in a car. I'm not spending time trying to find parking. I'm not spending time getting there. My switch from one meeting to the next is literally, you hang up the phone or you hang up from the webcam or the webinar, whatever you might be on, and you switch into another one. So there has been some definite productivity enhancements that have happened related to that. I think that's one of the surprises of the new era. Another one I know a lot of business owners are looking at is around cost expenditures and leasing. And so, for so many of us, it's always been about, we need this particular type of place to physically have our business and to work. I know many started off in a place like I am right now, at my house, but at some point ventured off into more accommodating space for the needs that you had, sometimes even luxurious space for the needs that you have. And now the question is, well, how much of that lease expense do you really need to incur? And is that one of the adjustments that a business owner might think about? There's a lot of other things that I want to just touch on just briefly, at least. One is about concentration of your contract risk. So for businesses that are fully all in on government contracting, a year or so ago, about a year and a half, we were on a federal government shutdown. You might have been thinking, well, maybe this is not the best idea. All my eggs are in that basket with the federal government. And if my agency happened to be one of those ones that was in a lapse of funding, then my ability to get contracts, it becomes a challenge. Environments like we're in now give us a ripe opportunity to say, what adjustments should I be really thinking about? How should I evaluate my particular business model so that I can do the things that are best for my business to be a strong, sustaining business? The challenge, of course, comes is you didn't get a lot of warning that this new environment was going to be front and center before it happened. So most people were trying to think through, how do I manage to just navigate today, tomorrow, and next week's payroll, let alone get to the next steps in terms of strategically refocusing something. But if you haven't taken those moments to get in that, it's a Stephen Covey quadrant where you're working on things that are not urgent, but they're important. That's where you need to spend some time as a business owner now to make sure you're driving your organization in the best direction to sustain itself and be successful. And that's not necessarily easy to do. So it's going to take some time and some things to consider. And even the adjustments, just in terms of, I talked earlier about leveraging the time and efficiency. Now it's a challenge for a lot of people. How do I build relationships that I normally might have built by sharing a coffee cooler station at a conference, and now maybe I don't have that ability to do it because we're online and I can't see who's at the coffee station at the same time I am. But there are more and more developments happening with our technology. More and more of the partners that we work with are using webinars in ways so that there can be some of that sharing of information. Typically, it's at a regional level that it happens. But you now also have the ability to participate in sessions like this that may have only been in certain geographic locations physically, but now you can be all over the whole country in a territory of the US anywhere and still join in. So there are a lot of advantages to this environment, but some challenges also. One of the real big challenges for a lot of businesses have been the funding and being able to cover their payroll. Of course, there's probably a lot of you who are aware of the Paycheck Protection Program, which has been a lifeblood for a lot of businesses to be able to get money to keep their payroll going. We're still in the process of actually awarding those dollars. We actually anticipated that we were done about a week ago, but actually Congress came back and the White House president signed into law an extension, so we can still do Paycheck Protection Programs loans. So if you're a business owner that needs cash to help pay your payroll, those dollars, they still exist, and you can work with your local lender or even a regional lender or an online lender to be able to get those funds for your businesses. Likewise, we're much more active now on our economic injury disaster loans. which can be used for payroll, but it's more in general for your working capital needs to help you because you've been affected by the COVID situation as a business owner. So those are in place. Now, I know for some of you, you're really, really happy because this situation has created great opportunities for you and you've been able to advance those opportunities. You're getting new contracts. Now you have to get financing for those new contracts. SBA's loan programs are still in place for growth and expansion. And one of the really cool things that's come out of this CARES Act, which is also the place where the Paycheck Protection Program came from, is the Small Business Debt Relief Program. It's one of the least known components of what came out of it, but the Small Business Debt Relief Program essentially means this. If you're in the mode of growing and expanding, maybe you've got a new contract, you need a working capital loan, maybe you've got some new contract that you need some equipment, you need to purchase that, you can finance that with an SBA loan. You work through your local lender to do it, and SBA will cover, i.e. will pay the first 6 monthly payments of principal, interest, and fees for your loan. So you need money, you can get an SBA loan for growth and expansion. We got you covered for the first 6 months of your payments. I've never seen us do that before. So that's a tremendous piece of value that's out there for businesses who do need to get more access to capital. And so that's one of the things that we definitely have in place. In the last couple quick minutes that I have, I just want to also just emphasize the resource support that is here to help with you. Our Small Business Administration website, sba.gov, has a ton of information on it always. So you're welcome to go there. We have also, through our website, we have 7J program training. 7J is just the location in the Small Business Act that references this education. It's for socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. HubZone firms are eligible to participate. But there's free online training that you can take advantage of there. And some of that is very specific to the COVID environment right now. Beyond that, we have a slew of resource partners. We have small business development centers. Small business development centers are located in pretty much every nook and cranny of this entire country, plus they're in all the territories. So whether you're in Guam or Puerto Rico, there's a small business development center there. Our SCORE program offices, which provide great mentorship by individuals who are business savvy, who've run businesses, who have been part of bigger organizations and want to give back, those folks are available. We have also our women's business centers and our Veterans Business Outreach Center. And although the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, is not officially an SBA partner, we kind of wrap our arms around them, and I guess they kind of figuratively do the same with us. And we all are there to accomplish a similar mission, which is to help elevate the entrepreneurial acumen, the business smarts of business owners who are trying to run their businesses as successfully as possible. Unlike any other time where normally you have something that you're kind of expecting, you kind of know what to handle, what's coming down, you have a good sense of how to handle it. The COVID environment has been just crazy. It made everybody look at a lot of things really, really differently. It's the perfect time to leverage free, individualized, one-on-one business coaching, mentoring support that are available through those groups I just mentioned. You don't have to go it alone. You don't have to think through and make every decision by yourself. It's almost impossible to do it as well as you could if you get some support and advice from an advisory group who's positioned specifically and exist in purposefully to support you and help you in those types of things. So I think I'm probably about past my time, so I will stop for now. And I know we'll have a Q&A session, so I look forward to participating more during this program a little bit later during the Q&A time. And again, thanks to all my great colleagues at HHS for, again, inviting SBA to participate. And again, our district office covers the Washington metropolitan area, but we've got one in every state and every major market across this country to support you locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Wow, you have never failed me yet, I must tell you. You always bring a vast array of information to the table for small businesses. And I too have known you for years, and you get better and better over the times. So I thank you again, Antonio, for bringing this information to the virtual audience. I'm hoping that you all are still ready for more. So now I would like to introduce Tony Ortiz. Mr. Ortiz joined the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, in August 2001. Mr. Ortiz serves as an advocate and liaison for the FAA Small Business Development Program Group, Eastern Service Area in Atlanta, Georgia. Mr. Ortiz oversees the Southern, Eastern, and New England Services Area for procurement assistance supporting small businesses, and has an extensive background in acquisition, property, security, facility management, and setting annual direct contract and subcontracting goals for small businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tony Ortiz.
Thank you, HHS, for putting this on. This is my 5th Zoom event that I've been on in the last several months. I've actually been one of the essential employees for FAA during this COVID-19 pandemic that we've been going through. I've been working since March, very long hours, into the weekends, this and that, to assist our agency in providing medical supplies and services. That being said, a lot of the small businesses have reinvented themselves, and they're starting to produce things as far as sanitizers, masks, and all types of services for disinfecting, buildings or whatever. I've actually found over 1,000 small vendors that actually provide medical supplies and services, not only to my agency, but also to, with the assistance of GSA, CDC, VA, and the SBA. I wouldn't have been able to find these sources, these vendors and contractors. I've been very successful. As Ms. Waters stated, I oversee the Eastern Service Area. We have 3 service areas in FAA, and they consist of the Eastern, which I oversee, which is all the Southern, Eastern, and New England regions, to include Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the Grand Bahamas. Next slide, Ms. Waters. Okay, so this is what our group does, our team does. We establish all the policies and guidances for small business FAA-wide. Each year, we have major procurement goals that not only do we meet, we exceed with small businesses in general, woman-owned businesses, small disadvantaged businesses, to include 8A, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. I know that I'll probably get a question, how about HUD and, Indian reservations, this and that. We also do award to those entities, but they're not part of our major procurement program goals, maybe in the future. Also, we monitor, evaluate, and implement the small business program. And I'm one of the strongest advocates in small businesses. I'm celebrating, I don't know if I ought to say this or not, I'm celebrating my 49th year working for the federal government. Next slide. Okay, as you can see, these are our target goals for each and every fiscal year, which starts 1 October and ends 30 September of each year. And we target 25 overall, 25% towards small businesses. On that 10%, that's to include small disadvantaged businesses, and 8A, 5% towards woman-owned, and 3% towards service-disabled veteran-owned. Not only does FAA meet, we exceed each and every year. And let me tell you all that we are allowed to not only do direct awards, non-competitive to 8A, but also to service-disabled veteran-owned. Next slide. Okay, and this is the reason why I have this slide on the service-disabled veteran-owned. I know there's a lot of vets out there. You must be registered with VA as a service-disabled veteran-owned, not only registered, but verified. And they'll give you a verification letter. Anytime we have any requirements to service-disabled veteran-owned or do any direct awards, we actually ask for that verification letter from the VA. Next slide. Ooh, this is kind of small. Miss Waters or Victor, you guys can't make that any bigger? No, that's okay. Okay, so all this is like a mission statement in our vision. It's enabled to, our mission is FAA is to procure goods and services from the world's most highly qualified small businesses. And the vision, regarded as the world-class organization that leads government small business utilization. Next slide. Okay, so I listened to this one speaker, I forgot who he was, and I've been listening very closely to all speakers. They've been doing a great job. He mentioned 12, I guess, service areas that they have in their agency. Well, lo and behold, FAA used to have 12. We consolidated down to 3 10 years ago. Eastern is located and headquartered out of Atlanta, Central out of Dallas-Fort Worth, and Western out of Seattle. I have the largest area to cover because if you notice there, it has Puerto Rico. It doesn't have the Virgin Islands, but the Virgin Islands is just a boat ride away from Puerto Rico and then the Grand Bahamas. I actually am based out of Atlanta, Georgia is my office, but I work directly for Headquarters FAA in Washington, D.C. That's who I report to. Next slide. Okay, I know this is the one you guys been wanting to see. These are the 3 things that we buy, and in that order. Construction is big business at FAA. In order to do any type of construction projects or requirement at FAA, you must have the bonding capability. If you have at least 500K and above, $1 million plus, you can do the large projects throughout FAA. Services, all types of services, you name it, we want it and we solicit it. And supplies, all types of supplies. Now, as far as supplies go, we do use the GSA schedule, but a lot of it's over the counter with a government purchase card, a credit card. And now, since this pandemic, COVID-19, all of the purchase card holders have a capability per day of 25K. Before I close out, I like to let everyone know, especially small business. Small business is very big business, FAA and the federal government. Continue to stay safe and be safe. Thank you.
No, thank you, Tony. The information, just keeps flowing, and I just want to also congratulate you on 49 years. That is awesome, awesome. You really shared some very good information today, and we thank you for being one of our speakers. Now we're actually down to our last speaker this afternoon, and her name is Chastity Ash. Ms. Ash is the lead small business technical and procurement analyst for the Regional Office of Small Business Utilization, Southeast Sunbelt Region 4. Ms. Ash acts as a liaison and advisor for the regional administrator, regional commissioners, and acquisition management officials with regards to the procurement preference program. Ms. Ash also serves as a co-chair for the National Contract Management Association, Atlanta chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, Chastity Ash.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Let's see. I hope everyone can hear me well or see me well. So I represent GSA Region 4, Office of Small Business. Oh, there I am. Hey. So I'm just going to talk a little bit, keep it quick, about GSA and what we have going on through COVID. For GSA, it's kind of been business as normal for us. We do not, let me say, do medical supply services or equipment. However, we did have 2 source of salt notices that were available for COVID-19 related items. The procurement process is being done through central office, which is in DC, which is who I report to. I just sit in Atlanta with Tony. Some of the items that we were looking for COVID, FAST had a PPE source of salt notice for surgical masks, gloves, bottles, disinfectant wipes, hospital grade disinfectant cleaners. So that source of salt notice is still open and still available to you. Again, that's with FAST, Federal Acquisition Services. And just to explain, what a lot of people don't know is that GSA has 2 different business lines. So we have Public Building Services and we have Federal Acquisition Services. So Public Building Services, of course, does our janitorial, our cleaning, our grounds, leasing buildings. Federal Acquisition Services, they do acquisition on behalf of other federal agencies, as well as administer the GSA scheduled contracts, telecommunications, etc. So there was 2 different source of salt notices that were available to you. Again, FAST, the Office of General Supply and Services, which is still open and will remain open. So if you need to access that source of salt notice, it's available on beta.sam, or I believe you can get that information from me during Q&A, or I can provide you with the email address so I can send that to you. There was another source of salt notice for Public Building Services. As far as screening services goes, that was specifically for GSA schedule holders and VA schedule holders. So to explain that a little further, what people don't know is GSA no longer does the schedules for the medical supply services or equipment. That is now done through the Department of Veteran Affairs. So if you're a company that sells any type of medical supplies, equipment, services, if you want to become a schedule holder, you would have to go through the Department of Veteran Affairs, not through GSA. And that's about 9 schedules that they cover, that they can assist you with. So with PBS, as far as cleaning the buildings, screening, that source of salt notice has closed. Again, it was just the RFI, request for information. So I would say, please be on the lookout on beta.sam, or if you are a GSA or VA schedule holder, you can be on eBuy looking for that information as well. Back to GSA as a whole. Again, we are business as normal. I've been an essential employee. We've been working. We've been super busy. Our main bread and butter in GSA, if you don't know, is construction. So we have, especially in Region 4, a lot of construction projects. And just to explain, Region 4 covers the 8 Southeast states. There's one of me in all 11 regions that we have. So instead of being like Tony and it's consolidated to 3, we still have 11 regions. So I sit in Atlanta, and that's the Region 4 headquarters, and it covers the 8 Southeast states. Again, GSA is a big buyer for public building services when it comes to architect, real estate, interior design, you name it. That's our bread and butter. And like I explained to you, FAST is fleet, it is the GSA schedule, etc. A lot of our requirements for GSA, what people don't know, can be found on beta.sam.gov, which was mentioned earlier. At GSA, you do not have to be a schedule holder to provide product and services to GSA. I know that's a myth. So we want to kind of counteract that myth. You do not have to be a GSA schedule holder to do business with us. If you are, great. If you aren't, that's great as well. So you can find, again, a lot of our requirements on beta.sam.gov. We also like to talk about our new forecast tool. GSA has a new forecast tool on Acquisition Gateway, if you haven't heard about it. It's actually a living document. So that means that document is updated once a month, sometimes twice a month. On that website, you can find all of our upcoming procurement opportunities before they hit the street. And it also takes you through the whole procurement phase. So it'll let you know if we're in the acquisition planning phase, if we're drafting the solicitation. If the solicitation has been issued, it will tell you the solicitation has been issued. It'll tell you where it's at. There'll be a link to where it's been issued. There's also information on what quarter we plan on doing it in. It also tells you, and this is the greatest thing that we think here at GSA that's available to small businesses and to the vendor community, is it tells you who the contracting officer is who's been assigned that project before the project's been issued on beta.sam or eBuy. So you have the opportunity, if it's in the drafting, acquisition planning, if it's in the solicitation issue phase, you can definitely at that point contact the contracting officer directly, send them your capability statement, let them know that you found this requirement on our forecast tool and that you're interested in getting more information or just putting yourself ahead of the game before the solicitation comes out. What we ask is that you actually pay attention to the forecast tool, because if it's in the evaluation stage, that's not the time to contact the contracting officer. If it's been awarded, that's not the time to contact the contracting officer and say that you're interested in this requirement, as the requirement has already been awarded, or when it's in the evaluation stage, we can't have conversations with you at that point because the opportunity's been missed. So that tool, our new forecast tool, is a great tool. The POC is actually the contracting officer. It will list the small business specialist for that particular requirement. What we do ask is that you reach out to the CO first, your contracting officer, let them know, hey, I found this on Acquisition Gateway, on your forecast tool, I'm interested. If you don't hear from them at that point, then we suggest that you contact our office, the Office of Small Business. And again, someone in one of the 11 regions will be able to assist you, and it gives our name and phone number, but your first point of contact should be the POC, who's the contracting officer. Again, if you have any additional questions for me, you can find those on our website, gsa.gov/small-business. On our website, we have 24 hours training, we have a YouTube channel. GSA now has an interact page. So if you're interested in anything as far as Oasis or Alliant or what's going on with schedules, with the consolidation. You can actually go to the GSA Interact page and you can interact with the community, and the community is led by contracting officers. So you can see the latest and greatest, you can see their blogs, you can see events. So that's a new tool that's available to you via GSA. We also have gsa.gov/events. So if you're looking for any of our events, which are now virtual like this one, you can find those as well at gsa.gov/events. So any of our training, if you need training on OASIS, Alliant, 8A stars, if you need training on how to use our forecast tool, that is also available to you as well. I know next we're going to have a little Q&A session. So I just want to say thank you, Ms. Waters. It's always great to work with you, your team, your staff. You guys are always wonderful. And GSA is here to help when we can. So I will pass it back along to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Chastity. I have to take a minute to spotlight GSA because they have been a strong small business advocate of ours for our outreach program since 2013, since I've been there. Not only that, whenever I call on GSA, they do not hesitate to support any of our outreach initiatives anywhere we go throughout the country. So again, Chastity, I want to thank you and thank GSA for the informative presentation. Now we're going to proceed with our question and answer panels of presenters. I would like all of the presenters to please unmute their audio and place your video on if applicable, or your picture. Okay, so please unmute yourselves, all my presenters, unmute yourselves. Okay, so the first pre-selected question is going to be asked of Skyler Eldridge. Skyler, you're the lucky one. You received the bonus today. And so before I start, Barbara Bigelow and I, we're going to alternate asking selected questions of you presenters. So the first question I have here is, what are ways that a small business can position itself to support after COVID-19?
What are ways they can position?
What are some ways a small business can position itself to support ASPR during COVID-19?
We provided a list of places that we solicit and put our requirements out. And one way you can position yourself is to go to those websites, to take advantage of those listed opportunities and provide us with your capability statement. One of the things that I always advise small businesses to do with a capability statement is to speak directly to the requirement. Don't just have a pat set or a pat capability statement that you just hand out to everyone. It's more important to us for you to speak directly to our requirement. And that way we know what you're capable of doing and you stand a better chance of rising to the top, because typically we look at technical as a strong suit, given the fact that we're very special in what we buy. We don't just buy regular N95 masks just because it says N95. We have requirements that have to meet very specific specs, as well as the other commodities that we buy. So that's one sure way to position yourself to at least be identified as a possible source for us.
So thank you for that. And just to piggyback off that also, suppose I am a small business and I have something that I think that that may be a service or interest to ASPR. And I think sometimes we call it unsolicited proposals.
Correct.
Do you guys have a way for me to get to you or provide that information to you of what I have to offer?
Yeah, just like we listed in the slides, if you utilize FAR 15.6, I believe, and put your unsolicited proposal together, we do have a portal for you to submit one in. We also have other opportunities like our Tech Watch program for you to come in and present what you're capable of doing.
All right. Ms. Bigelow, would you take over?
Certainly, certainly. I just want to thank Skyler. And also,
thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
During the survey, we will be sitting out. We'll have an opportunity, in a sense, for you to pose your questions, additional questions, but even the additional information where you can submit to our panelists. And but Skyler, I also wanted you to touch a little bit before I move on to another panelist with regards to the delivery. You spoke a moment, I think, ago when we was having a discussion with, delivery of services and goods. Can you speak a moment to that?
I'll give you an example. We might need a couple of million masks to be delivered right away to somewhere in one of the states. And if you're a small business and you just happen to be a distributor and you're capable of meeting that requirement, then we will contract with you. Like I said, we're not very discerning when it comes to the ability to meet our requirements. We're not picky and saying, oh, we only want to deal with the big prime contractors. We are always seeking sources that are available that can meet our requirements. That's our primary goal. So we go the whole spectrum. Do we always go to small businesses? Of course, we go first to small businesses. However, given our niche and given our mission space, we have to go where we can go to meet public health, safety, and security needs.
Thank you, Skyler.
Thank you. So Barbara.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? And someone else? Chastity, Tony?
Can you repeat the question?
Barbara, would you repeat?
Certainly. We were talking about delivery of services and goods, and especially during this time of COVID-19. We know that there's time constraints, but that's what Skyler was just addressing with regards to ASPR.
And what would they like to know?
With regards to like the delivery aspect for FAA.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I'm
okay.
a task here. Okay,
no problem.
Though in the beginning, most vendors and contractors were telling us their delivery, their ETA was anywhere between 15 to 45 to 60 days in the beginning when all this came out. FAA is kind of looking at between 7 to 10 days, no more than 30 days. But I'm going to tell you what we've done. Now, our agency has, if they can get it quicker, the thing that is driving the train is the quantity. The more the quantity, the lesser the delivery. The less the quantity, it seems like the deliveries, the lead time is longer. But our agency, what we have done, if they can get it to us sooner, we're doing a turnaround time as far as progress payments, less than 5 days. Now, you can't beat that with a stick.
Yeah, and so with GSA, just to chime in with that, once you fill out the source of salt notice, they are contacting you daily, sending you an email daily to say, hey, what is your status? How soon can you provide this? So once you fill out our source of salt notice, there is a daily communication for you to refill out the information to see how quick you can get it. Not necessarily that we need it at that moment, but I believe the turnaround they're looking for, especially for us, is probably going to be mask and hand sanitizers, is about 5 days. for a turnaround time delivery. But again, we are communicating. There's a daily email that comes out to you that says, hey, we're just checking in to see if you can still provide this to us and what day and time can you do it.
That's good. That's good. Thank you, Chastity. Santiago, you were speaking, a lot with the Buy Indian Act, but, do you have to be a Native American to work or, supply services and goods to IHS?
No, ma'am. You do not have to be Native American to perform services, but you do have to have your company has to have certain eligibility requirements that, as mentioned, identified on the slides, to have at least 51% ownership, and also have 51% operations by a Native American. Of course, that's fairly recognized within the Department of Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs. And we have, unlike VA, we are working towards our certification. Right now, there is no certification process that we have similar to VA. That's something that we're looking at. And as I mentioned, with our finalization of the rule for the HISARs, which is the HHS acquisition regulations, we were looking at specific possible options and how we can move forward to ensure that when Native American companies come forward, that we have a way to certify that, of course, they meet all the criteria.
Oh, good answer, Barbara. I think they're doing well. I'm enjoying this.
Yes.
Antonio, are there any SBA relief programs for small business that have been impacted by COVID-19?
Yeah, there are a lot of the ones I talked about earlier, as a matter of fact, are, and I didn't talk about our microloan program at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know for some borrowers, you've got situations with your credit that you might have had before that may limit your success with a traditional bank or lender in terms of being able to get the credit amount that you want to get approved. A lot of times our micro lenders are looking at things a little bit different. They don't have quite the same stringent requirements that the banks do. It doesn't mean that if your credit score is, negative 50, that you're going to get a loan from a micro lender either. You're going to still have those challenges, but it's an option that's available. And also a lot of the micro lenders will, in addition to helping you with financing, they will help you with your business strategy and help coach and guide you as well. So it's kind of one of those things that's a little less known about our microloan program. And again, we've got micro lenders pretty much all across the country. So if you go to our SBA.gov website, under our capital access or our loan program section, you'll see a link there for our micro lenders. So that's definitely one of the good things. Also, if you have already gotten an economic injury disaster loan and you still need more, or you had a paycheck protection loan approved and you still need more, right now you got to work with what you got.
Right. Barbara, I don't know about you, Barbara, but I am like getting a wealth of information here, and something.
Yes.
I've been in the government a long time, always learning something new. I'm serious, Skyler, always learning something new. So, Antonio, let me just ask you another question. What is the turnaround time? I know we've gotten several calls at HHS about the turnaround time being slow from SBA. Is that true, or it just depends on what the small business is looking for as far as the PP loans, the PPE loans and all that? So can you speak a little about that? Antonio?
I think we may, he's there. I think we may have actually lost him, Linda. So maybe we can move on to one of the another question. And I was thinking for all of our speakers, our panelists, that they could perhaps respond to this question. How can I make my response, if I'm a small business, my response is stand out above my competitors? I don't know, maybe we can start with either, I don't want to speak. Go ahead, Skyler. Thank you, Skyler. He stepped up to the plate. Thank you.
Well, I think, and I said this before, one of the things that you need to pay particular attention to is the solicitation. Please read the solicitation. Understand what the government is asking for. And right at the top, if you go into section M, you see the evaluation criteria. You go into L, you see your directions. Make sure you follow your directions and speak immediately to what our requirement is. If you put that right where it's supposed to be, you will rise to the top in my organization all the time.
Great. Any other panelists? I was just going to check on you, Antonia. I see you connecting, but any other panelists? Tony, Chastity, and Santiago. Any?
Yeah.
Go right ahead, Tony.
Chime in, Ms. Bigelow. So the biggest thing on those, most solicitations now for FAA, well, all solicitations. And what I always tell the vendors and contractors is, go through, download it, and then go through it from the front to the end of it. As they go through it, I always tell them for things that aren't clear is to, write up questions. And before they submit their offer or their proposal, they send those in writing to the contracting specialist or contracting officer.
Great.
Their offer. To me, that's real critical. And, I forgot to say something during my, presentation. I hear a lot of you guys talking about the FAR. Well, FAA does not follow under the FAR. We follow under the AMS, Acquisitions Management System. And Chastity Ash is well aware of that. I've worked with her extensively for many, many years. And a lot of the vendors and contractors that they don't understand it, but I always tell them this: we mirror the FAR to a certain extent, but with more flexibility, period. And enough is said. Thank you.
So we're coming down, we're winding down to our time, but I have one more question I need to ask. And this may apply to some and not others. So if you can answer, please answer. So as I work in the HHS Osborne office, of course, and we have, as Michelle stated earlier, we have 7 small business specialists. I want to know, how are you guys utilizing the small business specialists? And make it good, because Dr. Street is listening.
Ms. Waters.
Yes, sir.
Can you, what do you mean utilizing the small business specialist?
Well, I know who's speaking. Is Tony?
Yes, ma'am.
I know you're with FAA, so I think I'm mainly speaking about the HHS folks. So, because we have small business specialists, and normally we try to have them involved on the acquisition cycle as to when a procurement is about to come out, before it comes out, so that they can be involved on the award of these contracts. So I'm just asking, do you guys, and I know Skyler, and I'm going to speak to Skyler and Chastity, you can answer, and Vic, who else is on here? That's from SBA. Anybody from, I'm sorry, that's from HHS. So
I have Santiago and
Santiago, Linda. How are you guys utilizing your small business specialists?
Yeah, this is Santiago, and I want to just speak on our small business specialist, John Ferguson. He has been a tremendous jewel for us since I've arrived here at IHS, and he of course has extensive knowledge with the Buy Indian Act, which has been great. There was an instance a couple of years ago where they had talked about possibly transitioning, moving small business specialists around, And I let Ms. Street know that we need to keep John Ferguson with IHS. We use him extensively. He is responding to small businesses. He is responding to Indian-owned businesses. He always provides support, gets us our goals when we need them. So he has been a tremendous support to Indian Health Services and meeting our mission and our goals for small business.
I can tell you guys, for me, I don't know, Atlanta seems to be like a big family. So I definitely use the HHS specialist, even for GSA stuff. Like I will call Ms. Gwen, I will call Tony. I think we all just, and I appreciate you guys for that, because you guys have been very, very, very helpful in like cross communicating between agencies, especially when we need help or looking for a business. So, I mean, outside of HHS, I can say you guys have been a great resource partner for GSA with whatever we need. And I think Tony can say the same at FAA.
Okay.
Okay, so Ms. Waters.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll tell you guys something, and Chasty's aware of this. I'm actually the small business rep.
Okay.
Director for the Eastern Service Area for small business. But previously, prior to this being the small business rep for the Eastern Service Area, I was actually the manager for Southern Region in Atlanta for 4 years. And I've always been a strong advocate of small business. And I advocated not only to the COs, but all of the lines of business throughout FAA. And I have a strong support unit throughout FAA, but even a stronger one with my stakeholders, with GSA, CDC, VA, and SBA. I couldn't do the job without them.
Thank you. Thank you. Skyler, did you want to have a comment before we close out?
Well, yeah, of course, we work well with our small business specialists, and ours just started with us because our previous one retired just before, or just about the time we were going out for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, and now we have Melanie, and I know she's listening. She has been engaged and engaging. So, and I appreciate all her help preparing me for today as well. They play an intricate part in what we do and how we do what we do. So we've always had a team approach to all of our requirements within the ASPR. Because of the science that's involved in a lot of what we do, we have to be close and we have to have a team approach or we're not successful. So she's definitely part of the team. She sits in on my staff meetings bi-weekly, and I couldn't ask for a better one so far. And you've never failed me with Dwight, who was our SAB bus a couple of years back. So we always hit home runs with the Osnabrück. Thank you.
That's good to know. Well, good. So, Barbara, before I give closing remarks, did you want to have anything to add before as a closing remark?
No, I don't have anything to add, Linda, with the exception of just, again, expressing a big thank you with regards to all of our speakers and so forth. And I know you're going to touch on that, so I'm not going to elaborate even further.
Okay.
You go right ahead. Thank you.
Well, I too am so thankful and grateful to all of you for supporting us. And if you ever need us for anything that you need us, any outreach events, whatever you need, you know, you can definitely call on us. I would like to thank all of the presenters, resource partners, and our supporting stakeholders who joined us today. This was a recorded session, and you'll be able to find the recording link of the website, information regarding procurements, resources, and events. Now, I want you to listen to me carefully when I make this last comment, especially as my small business virtual audience. Make sure your company is registered in the HHS Small Business Directory under the Customer Experience website. which you can access from our Access to Success website. HHS buyers will use this database to find small business for goods and services. Additionally, you can upload your capability statement, complete your profile, and add any additional information you would like to communicate to HHS buyers. Also, if you would like to go to the SB mail at hhs.gov, you can leave any questions that you have of us. But last but not least, be on the lookout for our Listening Lab survey, which we encourage all of you to complete. If you take the survey, it will extend opportunity for you to ask questions of our panelists. In addition, you will receive 1.5 continuous learning points CLPs if you are a part of the federal acquisition workforce. So again, I thank everyone that was my panel. I thank you again. So thank you. This concludes our virtual listening lab. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay positive, and test, well, let me see, think positive and test negative.
Thank you.
Have a good one. All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you.